All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we are going to be doing today the long-awaited Paladin versus Shaman guide. Okay, so to begin with, Paladin versus Shaman, I figure we're going to start with an overview of the matchup in general. And basically, there are two main ways for a Paladin to approach a matchup versus a Shaman. And this typically depends entirely upon whether or not you are the I can heal in combat style of Paladin. Specifically, that would be Holy or Holy Reckoning. Or if you are the I can't really heal in combat all that well, Ret Reckoning or Deep Ret. And those two styles are, for Holy, it's more of an endurance based style. And for Ret Reckoning, it's pretty much, and for Deep Ret, it's pretty much a purely offensive based style with far more in depth and complicated usage of pet summons. And I'll give you an example of that right here. So this, I managed to get a hold of Drakova and have him make a Phase 4 gearing build that he would go up against an Elemental Shaman with in a dueling tournament. And as we can see here, he's got the Skeleton Summoning Offhand book from Onyxia. And he's got an Arcanite Dragonling for additional skeleton summoning, for additional pet summoning. And he's got Arena Grandmaster Trinket for absorbing a burst from the Elemental Shaman. It should also be noticed that he, despite, how do I put this? Despite seemingly being kind of defensive with having like over 5,200 hit points and actually having a pretty good chunk of mana, he's also got his talent trees here. As you can see, he's got no holy. Nothing in holy whatsoever. The moment these pet summons are no longer useful for him, he will likely switch into a two-handed mode, right? So he's also got things like I can't say that, band of Akuria to keep his hit rating up as high as possible so that when he switches into that two-hander as a Ret Reckoning Paladin, he can go to town. He also makes mention that eye for an eye is a really, really big deal in this matchup for him. We'll talk about why that is later. But if you're talking about Deep Ret, basically, or Deep Ret or Ret Reckoning, what you're talking about is you live and die off of the summons, or you just have to put all your marbles in surviving the burst from an Elemental Shaman, and then your next melee attack all but annihilates them with all the Reckoning charges that you get off of their burst. Which yeah, anyways. So I'm going to take this video kind of slow, just for the record, because my thoughts are a little jumbled on this matchup in general. So if I'm doing a lot of ums and a lot of pauses, just have to forgive me on this one. There's like branching paths of decision making in this matchup, but I'm trying to really focus it down on the core aspects. And the core aspects are Shamans need to kill a Paladin inside of a burst. You can see up here, I've got the typical burst combo and the numbers that are typically associated with that burst. The bracketed numbers are the critical damage that comes out instead. As you can see here, there's no base for the burst because this is considering an elemental mastery burst. The thorium grenade image that we have up here is because somewhere in this area between them putting down just so we're clear, the burst is lightning bolt into a fire nova totem into some kind of a stun, which we have represented here by a thorium grenade. But a lot of times, if they're Tauren, that's going to be a war stomp that comes out and stuns you. While you're stunned, they then go into a Chain Lightning Earth Shock with Elemental Mastery combo, which typically does something like 3,000 to 3,500 damage. But a lot of times these Shamans are going for broke, and they'll be using like a Zandalari Hero Charm, or they'll be using a Power Infusion, whatever, what the fuck. And they're going for having so much burst damage that if you as the Paladin do not bubble, you just explode, basically, is what they're temporarily going for. Now, the main reason why elemental shamans are so centralized, there we go. The main reason why they're so centralized around needing to use these bursts in order to kill you is because elemental shamans only have enough mana to really execute on maybe 2 to 3 bursts. I'll say 3. It's like 2 bursts if they're not using a mana potion or a dragon fruit, which I do have up here. If they're using a mana potion or a dragon fruit, then they can get a third burst out. And because we're paladins, we can almost guarantee to survive one of those bursts with our bubble. And so then they've only got that second, maybe third burst behind that to actually kill us. And the whole point I'm trying to make here is, and this brings us into another subject in general, which I'll go right here, is what are the major weaknesses of a shaman? And the major weaknesses of a shaman are, I'm going to use the phrase, they are mana inefficient. But that is not actually what is taking place with a shaman. What is taking place with a shaman is they are kind of mana neutral, but they have they're extremely quick at turning what mana they do have into damage and throwing that damage into their opponent, if that makes any sense. So they're not technically mana inefficient, especially if you if you put some points into either Convection here or you go for elemental focus. But they are nonetheless, they run out of mana very quickly, but at the same time they convert it into damage on their target extremely fast. So theoretically, if you can survive the terrifying amount of damage that they're able to pump out into you, you can just out heal them and then out mana them, and they will die pretty quickly, especially with a Mugga hurt. But we'll talk about that momentarily. So the other major weakness of an elemental shaman is that they have significant issues. Go away, dude. They have significant issues with pushback immunity / spending talents in general. And this kind of has to do with the fact that there's a lot of good things they want out of the restoration tree, like they want the ability to heal in combat, and they want the ability for 5 out of 5 into title mastery, which increases their critical strike chance by another 5%. But if you go for their lightning, lightning spells at least. But if you come back over here, what you can see after looking through the shaman talent tree is it's really hard for a shaman to pick up Eye of the Storm. Like there's not much in the way of spare talent points for them to actually get Eye of the Storm. Why is it not telling me that it's 3 out of 3 for Eye of the Storm? This is actually really bothering me. Give me a sec here. Yeah, it's 3 out of 3. What the? Man, screw you. So what Eye of the Storm is supposed to do is it gives the shaman a 100% chance to gain a focused casting effect that lasts for 6 seconds after being the victim of a melee or ranged critical strike. The clear casting effect prevents you from losing casting. It causes pushback immunity for 6 seconds after suffering a critical strike. It is very, very uncommon for shamans to either have improved Fire Nova Totem, which this will be a big deal, and to have Eye of the Storm simultaneously. They almost always need to pick between the two, which means you're either dealing with an extremely terrifying bursty shaman that has almost no protection from pushback issues if something is actually attacking them. So they're relying purely on their burst, and that has to do with Fire Nova Totem, but we'll come back to that. Or you're dealing with a shaman that doesn't have anywhere near the terrifying burst, especially if you know how to play against them, but they can deal with people being up and personal and in their face and wailing on them because they've got Eye of the Storm. Well, the reason for this is because the Fire Nova Totem. So I don't have it pulled up right now, but the stats on a Fire Nova Totem are basically... I guess I can go over here. So basically, the totem gets put on the ground, and then 4 seconds later, it explodes. All right? And if you have it spec'd, it explodes after 2 seconds. And it does the damage as you see here. It typically does with well-geared shamans, with ZG trinkets and all that crud. It's doing about 600 to 1200 damage if it critically strikes its target. And if they do not have it spec'd, that's what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, okay. So when they spec it, it reduces the delay time of it by 2 seconds. So it goes off after 2 seconds as opposed to 4 seconds. If you look at this burst sequence, right, you can see this burst sequence is very, very difficult to get off with a 4-second delay on your frickin' Nova Totem. Because you're casting a Chain Lightning, you put down a Nova Totem, then you kind of have to, like twiddle your thumbs for like a couple seconds because you don't have Eye of the Storm. When the Paladin gets on top of you, you're going to start suffering pushback, so you can't really go for a lightning bolt. It's going to take longer than 2 seconds or 2.5 seconds to get out that lightning bolt. So you kind of are stuck there twiddling your thumbs, waiting for Nova Totem to kind of be around about the right amount of time. And then you throw your grenade or you do a War Stomp and you go into your Chain Lightning. Well, from a Paladin perspective or from an opponent perspective, 4 seconds to kill a 5 health totem is a million freaking years. So if they do not have a Fire Nova Totem spec, you can just kill it. Like it's really that simple. You can just X out this extra 600 points of damage from the equation. And suddenly you're seeing that it's actually... Like, if you total this up, this over here, I think it's like about 4,000 nature damage. That's on the extreme end. That 4,000 burst is like definitely with a ZG hero charm. More common than that, it's like a 3,500 damage burst that comes out of this combination. But if you're looking at it, it's like, okay, if they're doing like 4,000 nature damage over here, and they're doing like, you know, an extra 800 off of the lightning bolt, they're only at 4,800 hit points. And if you look at the two Paladin builds, that this is the one that I'm suggesting, and then this is the one that Drakova is suggesting, we're above 5,000 hit points. So even if all this stuff, basically this lightning bolt has to crit, and there has to be an extra thorium grenade bit of damage in there, and only then do we die. So this is like, let's say the thorium grenade does like 400 damage. This is like 4,000 damage. And looking at 4,800 plus 400 damage, that's 4,200 damage theoretical coming in, right? And if you look at my build says... if none of that gets resisted, I die, because I've only got 5,700 hit points. With Drakova's build, he's alive with like 11 hit points, and he's able to do stuff. This becomes a far bigger problem when you factor in that this lightning bolt right here, because you can easily whipper root that. So you see the lightning bolt come in, and whether it crits or not, if it crits you, you use a health potion. If it doesn't crit you, you use a whipper root. But either way, you can also, before you get stunned, you can easily and very clearly cancel that lightning bolt out damage with a whipper root tuber effectively, right? Put the red over here too, just to make sure. So suddenly this elemental shaman's burst, like let's assume the lightning bolt crit, but if the lightning bolt crit, you would just drink a health potion instead of using the whipper root. That's the trade-off. So it's kind of the same either way. So in this scenario, we'll say that the lightning bolt failed to crit. It's doing 8, and then we whipper rooted, which completely nullify one another. They can't use a Fire Nova Totem because it's a 4-second freaking delay. You can just hit the thing or target it and judge. It should also be noted that when shamans put their totems down, they come down in very predictable fashion, kind of like this around the shaman. And the Fire Nova Totem will always be in the same spot. And I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure the Fire Nova Totem is always like here. But I could be 110,000% wrong with that. But it's very predictable where the Fire Nova Totem is going to go down. They'll usually do an animation. You'll see the totem go down, and within a fraction of a second, you can just target and kill the damn thing. That's if you're really on top of your ball game. But the point is, let's calculate some damage. 4,400. I'm alive. I heal. The end. Okay, let's say the thorium grenade crits for some reason. Okay, that's like 4,800 damage that I've taken. Woo, whoop-de-frickin-do. I'm still alive. The Earth Shock has been used, which means I can probably easily heal myself without any problem whatsoever. But we'll get into that later. Why exactly you can like what the order of operation is when you actually want to close in on a shaman. But for now, what I'm basically trying to explain is a huge component of a shaman's burst is actually this damn Nova Totem. And because of this, they desperately need these 2 points in improved Fire Nova Totem. And subsequently, they almost never have Eye of the Storm. Like, they just do not have Eye of the Storm. Feel free to mess around with the talent tree, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So, the first big weakness of an elemental shaman was, checky check, indeed. The first big weakness was the fact that they run out of mana very quickly, but they also turn that mana into damage on their target at a terrifying rate. So technically, they're not very mana efficient in the grand scheme of things, but their burst potential is quite terrifying. The second big weakness is they either come with a potentially deadly burst combo, but if they have that burst combo, they have major pushback issues. Or they come with the ability to sort of shrug off pushback issues, but they do not come with that major burst combo. And this is why, like when I go over here to Dracova's build, you can see him using extensively like Arcanite Dragonling and like the Skeleton Offhand Summoning. And the reason for this is because not only does it suck damage from the burst, right? Because if the Elemental Shaman has like a Skeleton Pet beating on them or has like a Dragoniteling beating on them, when you get chain lightninged, what'll happen is you'll take something like 800 less damage from the chain lightning because the chain lightning hits you, hits the pet, and then hits you again. And that reduction of about 800 damage, especially if you factor in like a Whipper-Root usage to try to cancel the lightning bolt, tends to mean that you survive the burst very easily. So, for example, let's say you get the point. At that point, it's kind of like the Fire Nova Totem has to crit. So, for example, a Fire Nova Totem plus a Thorium Grenade or a Goblin Mortar would probably be a better example, but I got that over here. That's like 1,000 damage, and then they're doing like another 4,000 damage. So Dracova, theoretically, under these conditions, would be suffering like 5,000 damage. If the lightning bolt over here crit and he whipper-rooted, he'd be suffering 5,800 damage, and then the pet is shrugging off another 800 damage, and then you can clearly see that at 5,200 health, he's going to survive that burst. The name of the game with a paladin, okay, if you want to kill a shaman, is can you survive the burst? And the reason for that is if you can survive the burst, the odds that you can then heal after that are almost 100%, especially if you're using the correct lines of play. And so the difference between surviving the burst with like 50 hit points and not surviving the burst is the difference between you being on top of a half, a minus 1/3 mana shaman with full life versus you just died, basically. So understanding how to deal with the burst and gearing yourself to have enough hit points and durability to deal with the burst is numero uno in dealing with a shaman. All right, so there's one last weakness of a shaman, and I'm going to try to remember it. Let's see. Mana issues, pushback issues. So the last weakness of a shaman is kind of twofold, and that is that they do not really have the ability to get away from us, especially if you're using a Mugga Hurt, and I would highly suggest using a Mugga Hurt. They do not really have the ability to engage in an endurance fight with a paladin whatsoever. They have too severe pushback issues. They have too severe of mana issues. They need to kill us in the burst. If their burst fails and they decide, okay, I'm going to go Ghost Wolf and I'm going to try to run away, a combination of Seal of Justice stuns, Hammer of Justice stuns, and Grenade stuns. Hey, look, I caught back up to you. Plus Mugga hurt, Mugga hurt, Mugga hurt, Mugga hurt is just going to shit all over them. And they'll be out of mana, and they won't be able to get away from you, and you'll just kind of beat them to death. The actual time on target you have to kill a Shaman, if a Shaman is low on mana and trying to run away from you, is like 60 seconds with a Mugga hurt. Like, they can't really go anywhere. They can't really do anything. Statistically, they just kind of die horribly. And if they ever manage to actually get away from you, despite the fact that you're working the Mugga hurt slow in with the stuns like crazy, like I talk about in a lot of my other videos, you just grenade them and then catch back up to them and then start beating the shit out of them. And if they ever actually make it away from you and you see them, like, they have to come out of Ghost Wolf form, I do believe, in order to eat and drink. If they're out of combat, you're out of combat, which means that your play is you cast Blessing of Freedom on yourself. You then mount up on your 100% speed mount and you run at them. And the issue they have is they can't Frost Shock you to slow you, even a rank 1 Frost Shock, because you have Freedom on. So they have to purge off the Freedom, then they have to wait 1.5 seconds, and only then can they frost. Oh shit, the Paladin's on top of me. Like, that's literally the scenario. So they can't get you off of them, is what I'm trying to say. So that's technically their fourth weakness, but that's kind of a minor weakness. The other minor weakness that I already brought up is they have massive issues with pets. They have issues from pets from a burst perspective, and they have issues with pets from a pushback perspective. So, for example, Barlov's, whatever, the trinket that summons 3 peasants to fight for you for a short period of time. If you can kill the Fire Nova Totem, be it the 2-second one or be it the 4-second one, God forbid, if you can kill that totem, suddenly, and this goes doubly if they've already used their Thorium Grenade. But if you can kill their Fire Nova Totem, then all of a sudden trinkets like Burlov's Peasant Collar become very applicable because, again, they can't chain lightning into that, so they're just kind of stuck twiddling their thumbs until the Peasant Collar wears off because they don't really have any AoE. They can't chain lightning into it because that'll completely negate their burst. They can't... what else am I trying to say? Oh yeah, they got massive pushback immunity, so they can't just hold their ground and try to cast a spell. They couldn't even cast Ghost Wolf at that point. So the Peasant Collar is not half bad. If they have a Thorium Grenade, there's a trick you can do where you get you do the Peasant Collars, but you kind of back up a little bit. So you give the Shaman the choice, especially if you've already killed the Fire Nova Totem. Do I use my Thorium Grenade to take out the Peasant Collars, or do I use my Thorium Grenade to take out the Paladin? And you can also decide as the Paladin, okay, I'm just going to jump all over the Shaman, blah, 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 blah. But we'll basically cover that later in detail. Okay, so now that I've done the overview, lol, I'm going to get into the gearing that you would typically want to use, either my style, which is this build, or the Ret Reckoning style that Drakova is showcasing here, again with the pets, and an Arena Grandmaster trinket. That the Arena Grandmaster trinket here serves the exact same purpose as a pet. He sees the burst coming. It's more for the second burst, because you can't really stop the first. We'll get into it later. But for now, I'm going to pause the video, because I actually have to go do something really fast. Okay, now that we are done with Know Your Enemy, I think we are moving on into Know Your Gear. Alright, so the number one most important thing when fighting an elemental shaman is, do you have the ability to survive this burst or not? Now you can survive that either by having enough hit points to survive it, which is actually kind of hard to do, but you can get like 4,500-ish hit points. You can survive it by by mixing hit points with a fair amount of like nature resist and fire resist. Oh, that's one of the elements of weakness I completely forgot about. Okay, so the other element of weakness of an elemental shaman is the number of resist checks that they're actually their burst is required to make. So if you look at it here, you've got one resist check in the lightning bolt. You've got 2 fire resist checks in the fire nova totem and the thorium grenade. Then Chain Lightning is technically 3 separate resist checks that the game is looking for. And then Earthshock is another resist check. So you're looking at a total of 7 resist checks, 5 of which are nature damage and 2 of which are fire. And that'll come in to be a big deal when we talk about why a little bit of nature resist and a little bit of fire resistance is so valuable in this situation. And it centers around the fact that if you have enough hit points to survive an elemental shaman's burst, like I said, you can heal to full. There's a window there to heal to full. We'll talk about it when we get around to it. But you can easily just be like, lol, I'm not dead. I don't have to use bubble. Let me just heal to full. And the next thing you know, the shaman is in deep, deep shit because his burst failed to kill you. The paladin just healed to full. He couldn't do anything about it. Oh, fuck. And that's basically your win condition as a paladin is you survive the burst, you take a moment to heal to full. We'll talk about that in a second. How you basically do it is you do a Seal of Justice hit and you stun the shaman for 2 seconds. I just made a video on Seal of Justice might be OP, and I talked about why it'll be super good versus shamans. But basically, you can do a melee attack with the paladin, and then even before the melee attack completes, like the game actually registers its completion, you start healing a Holy Light. There's a very good chance, especially with Reckoning, that you will get off that 2-second stun. The game then registers a 2-second stun, and basically by the time a shaman could even, let's say he's stunned for 2 seconds, you're charging up a heal, and he is spamming War Stomp, which is an instant stun ability, right? Or he's spamming Title Charm. You will get that Holy Light off before they get off that War Stomp / Title Charm. And let's say they trinket it, right? Like, let's say you do the 2-second stun on the shaman, and then the shaman goes, oh shit. The hair on my mouth. The shaman goes, oh shit, and then trinkets the stun. Basically, you throw your Hammer of Justice stun, which since the two of them do not share a diminishing return, now the shaman has no trinket, and he's sitting there for 6 seconds. Now you pump 2 Holy Lights into yourself, and again, you're back to full life. So, moral of the story is, if you can survive the shaman's burst, and that you can actually physically close in on the shaman, your ability to then heal yourself to full is almost 100% guaranteed. All right, we clear on that? Cool. So this brings us to the gearing section, which is how do I gear my paladin in such a way so as to have enough durability that I can survive their burst, basically. The secondary consideration to all of that is you actually want to have a decent amount of DPS on top of this a theoretical durability requirement, because if you're still working within a 60-second-ish kill window. Like, I don't like to kill my shaman in 60 seconds. I want to kill my shaman in like between 30 to 40 seconds, basically. And that's just in case Mugga RNG starts to fail or some other factors are in the equation, because they can get away from you if you're not really on the ball with some stuff. And they get a couple, they get like a stun resist or something, and then they're gone, and you're like rolling your eyes like, ah, crap. So you're better off having some semblance of DPS, which this build definitely has. Okay, so let's talk about my version, my gear setup here first. So some of the gear I have here is extraordinarily, and I'll put the link in the description. So some of the gear here is extraordinarily easy to get, and some of it is not super easy to get. So Malfurion Signet Ring, for example, it's a phase 4 ring, but you have to get Exalted with the Cenarian Circle. Even if you don't have that, you can throw on some other high stamina ring, but the Malfurion Signet Ring is terrifying. You can see here that I have no real trinkets whatsoever. I just have trinkets that increase my resistances, like specifically Nature Resist. And what the hell? Oh, okay, that was weird. Yeah, so specifically increased my nature resist, and I got some like easy piece of crap nature resist. Yeah, so the other back that has nature resist on it that's better than this one is like a world boss drop. So I just laughed at that, and I got this random shitty Nature's Whisper thing in it, but it's got nature resist. So why is there such a heavy emphasis on nature resist here? Well, what you can see by the end of the day is in a Husk of Naru, which is really good, is I've got over 5,000 hit points, which is exactly where you want to be as a paladin versus a shaman. You definitely want over 5,000 hit points, and the reason for that is how a little bit of nature resist works. You can see down here, though, that I've managed to accumulate 101 nature resist, mostly because I'm using the +5 to all resistances enchant on a Judgment Shoulders, as opposed to the +18 spell power enchant on the shoulders, which may or may not be realistic, depending. I haven't really decided which one I want yet. But 101 nature resist. Holy God. Let's think about this for a second. If you recall, my opponent needs to make 5 nature resist checks. And theoretically, he needs to pass, okay? Let's say he makes 5 nature resist checks and he makes 2 fire resistance checks, and he passes every single one of them, and I don't get a single ounce of reduced damage coming my way. In this case, I die. Like, that literally happens. I do not have enough effective hit points in this build to survive if absolutely nothing resists. However, let's sit back and talk theoretically about if I'm running at an elemental shaman. Well, to begin with, what I'll point out is if you're at the 30-yard range as a paladin that can heal against an elemental shaman, you're sitting hopefully in improved concentration aura. If you're not sitting at range, you're activating fire resist, and then you're basically charging at the elemental shaman. And 1 second. Oh no, that's fine. So we can add essentially 60 fire resist to this equation. So I'm sitting at 120 effective fire resistance in this build, and I'm sitting at 101 nature damage. And then if we go over here, let's just ask ourselves statistically, worst case scenario, like how much resistances in effect do I really need? Actually, I won't bore you guys with that. The answer is the answer in its totality is, with this gear and with this setup, if I run at a shaman full life, I'm gonna, even if I don't use a whipper root to help take the edge off the lightning bolt, what's gonna happen is I will survive the burst with over 1,000 hit points left. I'll be sitting at between 20% and 30% hit points even after they pumped this burst into me, just because of how high my resistances are. More commonly, what happens is I end up chilling at around, let me think, it's about 35% to 40% of my hit points are left even after the shaman has put a full burst into me. What this effectively means, especially if you factor in the whole I can hit you and I can stun you and I can heal off of that stun, is that I am virtually unkillable as long as I'm playing semi-frickin' decently in this paladin build. Which is why I very much suggest this paladin build. It's very simple and easy to get this gear. None of the gear here is anywhere near outside the realm of possibility for any of us to get. The only one being really painful here is the Malfurion Signet Ring, which just takes time, and or money, one of the two, which is all the same. And you can just slap on this gear and you can basically YOLO against an elemental shaman, and as long as you know to stop and heal whenever you need to, you're basically gonna win. The other nice thing about this about this gear is it lets you sit at the 30-yard range and duke it out with an elemental shaman. So if they keep pumping lightning bolt after lightning bolt after lightning bolt into your ass at a long range, you can basically just out heal that pretty effectively with 101 nature resist. even if you don't have the Malfurion Signet Ring and you only have like 80 nature resist, or even if you don't, even if you only have like 60 nature resist, the fact that there are 5 nature resist checks that the Elemental Shaman has to jump through, and as long as you have like over 5,000 hit points, it's very difficult for an Elemental Shaman's burst to actually kill you. And this becomes far more so the case if you're very mindful of when to use either your Whipper or your healing potion. Those times being, you use a healing potion if the lightning bolt crit you. If the lightning bolt did not crit you, you use a Whipper, right? And though that will be enough to get you through the dark days of the first 100% crit burst that a shaman throws at you. Then what happens is there's a little bit of downtime while the shaman is waiting for their lightning bolt to the chain lightning to come off of cooldown. You're probably just healing yourself to full in the inner medium, and then the shaman comes at you again with like either a war stomp or a goblin mortar, or they try to stun you again and they do another burst into you. Or they'll probably stop a little ways away and they'll start casting lightning bolts into you, but you can... There's a million different ways that could go, but a bunch of different things that can happen during the course of the duel. But the moral of the story is, with my particular build here, you're virtually unkillable. Like, at any point in time, you just go improve concentration aura, you stop, and you start casting a holy light, or even you don't even go improve concentration aura, you just chill out in the fire resist, and the only way that they can stop you is they have to war stomp you with like a 50% reduced duration. They have to goblin mortar you with a 50% reduced duration against either 120 fire resist, or they have to try to earth shock you through 101 nature resist, and even if that works, there's a 15% chance that your heal goes through anyways because of improved concentration aura. This build is basically just, it's terrifying. If I was a shaman trying to fight this, I would be shitting bricks, basically, because that is way too much fucking nature damage to try to have to deal with it as an elemental shaman. And then at 120 fire resist, that is way too much freaking fire resist. And on top of that, it's a fucking paladin, which means it still has like bubble and all the other things behind it. And God help them if they also have like any pet summons or anything like that going on once you get really good. I actually really like this song over here, by the way. That's why it's up. Let's see here. What else do I want to talk about? I suppose we should talk about the combat in general. And I already kind of talked about how Dracova's doing a very similar... It's overall the same strategy that Dracova is trying to pull off with this gear here. He's bringing in the summons, not so much for the pushback, but just to take the edge off of the burst. Therefore, he can survive the burst. If you can survive the burst, you can do the seal twisting with Seal of Justice. You can heal back to full, and the shaman is up shit crick without a paddle. So that's why these two summons are here. If he really wanted to, he could pop both summons, I think, No, I think there's a cooldown. I could be wrong about that. He might be able to do them simultaneously. I really don't know. Either way, he's got an Arena Grandmaster Trinket. So the Arena Grandmaster Trinket is more for the second burst the Elemental Shaman tries to pull off. Because the first burst an Elemental Shaman does, you can almost guarantee they have a stun. The second burst they try to pull off, they may or may not have a stun. And it may or may not be on diminishing returns. So it might be like a 1.5 second stun. And then what happens is they like stun you for 1.5 seconds. They're charging up their chain lightning into their burst. It doesn't quite kill you, their second burst. And then you like, how do I put this? I don't know when you would use the Grandmaster Trinket, honestly. I keep thinking about it. Dracova would. So, I imagine Ret Reckoning Paladins, they know exactly where the hell to use their Grandmaster Trinket in this matchup. But I will just cover the matchup in a general overview now. Okay, so the first thing to know, and the matchup comes in two stages. There's a, what the hell do I do out here at the 30-yard range mark? And then there is the what the hell do I do to close in on the shaman, and then what do I do when I'm physically on top of the shaman. And this 30-yard range playstyle is almost exclusively Holy Paladin combat tactics. It's not, and even if you're doing the 30-yard range playstyle, you still inevitably have to jump on top of the elemental shaman in order to kill them. Moral of the story is we're going to start off by talking about how to jump on top of an elemental shaman and beat their dick off while surviving the burst, or more accurately, how to jump on an elemental shaman, survive the burst, and then beat their dick off. And then the reason why we're going to start with that is because that is universal. That is a thing you're going to be doing for Deep Holy, for Holy Reckoning, for Ret Reckoning, and for Deep Ret. The strategy changes with the gear, but the overall what you're trying to do overall is exactly the same. And then I'll come back at the end and I'll talk about specifically the 30-yard range, which is for paladins that can heal in combat and are wearing the proper gear only. So, what the hell was I going to do? I was going to check to see I'm still at 40 minutes. Holy crap. There's your long-form content for you. All right, let's see here. What do I want to talk about? Okay. So the first rule of watching your paladin charge off into the enemy elemental shaman is make sure you're full life. I don't care what you have to do as a paladin, just try to make sure you're full life before you go charging after an elemental shaman. Like if you're minding your own business and all of a sudden you get hit with a lightning bolt, don't just turn around and be like, I'm gonna charge at this freaking elemental shaman, blah, because you're going in already minus like 800 hit points at a minimum. And if you've been keeping up on the math, we've been barely surviving these bursts, even with like a little bit of even with over 5,000 like 200 hit points, we've been barely surviving these bursts. So if you let yourself go in at minus 100 hit points from the word go, expect to literally die right about here before you get on top of the shaman. You're going to get stunned, you're going to get bursted, you're going to explode. Or you're going to get stunned, you're going to get bursted, you're going to see the writing on the wall, and you're going to have to bubble at the last second, which you can do, and you can get away with that, and it kind of is a viable tactic, but there's better options. I like saving the bubble for if RNGesus comes a-knocking, and everything out of the shaman is for some reason just a crit. So, for example, if I see the lightning bolt crit, and let's say I've survived the first burst, but I'm getting burst on the second time. The shaman stuns me, or the shaman's casting into my face. This lightning bolt all of a sudden crits me for 1,600. The shaman takes his Q, war stomps me, puts down a Nova Totem, and then proceeds to charge up like a lightning bolt into me or some crap. Like if I'm seeing the RNG going badly, I'll use the bubble. So that's kind of why I'm not talking about how to use bubble during the course of the matchup against a shaman, because if you're doing it right, you shouldn't have to use a bubble. Bubble is for if RNGesus is going south, period. Another example of RNGesus going south would be, yeah, I've got all these resists, but they're not doing anything, or I've got a little bit of resist and it isn't doing anything. Shit, I have to bubble. So the bubble is more of an oh shit consideration than it is actually a viable implementation in this matchup. You can also see that in Dracova's gearing here. Dracova, in my opinion, is not gearing here with the idea in mind that he is going to use a paladin bubble at some point in time in this duel. He is gearing here in mind that he does not need to use bubble, but he has it in his back pocket if it is so needed. So anyways, let's talk about what you're supposed to do. Number 1, make sure you're at full life before running at the shaman. Number 2, run at said shaman. Round about the 20-yard range mark, you're going to get the lightning bolt to crash into you. Round about here, So lightning bolt's going to crash into you round about the 20-yard mark as you're coming in on the shaman. Shamans can cast lightning bolt out to like 36 yards. It's going to start. Lightning bolt's going to be on the way and coming into your face around about the 20-yard mark. Sometimes it hits you sooner when you're a little bit deeper, but whatever. First thing you're going to do, you're going to watch this lightning bolt like a hawk. You're going to try to observe 2 key things about a lightning bolt. Number 1, how much damage is a lightning bolt doing? Is it doing 800 damage, or is it doing less than 800 damage? And if it crits you, it's much harder to see, to know just how much damage it's doing on the fly. But the reason why I have 800 stamped here is because well-geared elemental shamans do 800 damage with their lightning bolts. Non-as well-geared elemental shamans do 700-ish damage with their lightning bolts. So the point is, you can very clearly tell the level of gearing and subsequently the level of death that a shaman is spitting at you, like their burst potential theoretically, based upon how much damage their lightning bolts do. Now, if you have as much resistance as I do, it's a little bit harder to tell, but it's something that I've learned to keep an eye on. It's like I get hit with a lightning bolt out of nowhere. My first thought is run away from the enemy. Like literally just run my ass away and try to get a heal. And I want to be very keen on how much damage did the lightning bolt do. Oh, the lightning bolt did 700 damage. Okay, I can fight this guy no problem because he's not a very well-geared shaman. Oh, the lightning bolt did 800 damage. Okay, now I'm a little scared and alarmed and I need to be acting accordingly. The lightning bolt did less than 600 damage. Jesus Christ, that's like a fresh elemental shaman. Gimme, I'll just go kill him right now. Anyways, if this lightning bolt hits you and it crits you, you use a health potion. If this lightning bolt hits you and it does not crit you, you use a whipper-root. We're going to go with the non-crit for now, just because that is the more common, but in either case, you need to be mentally prepared that lightning bolt crit means whipper-root, non-lightning bolt crit means health potion. If for some reason you're using like a smaller health potion, which is the more common, like the 900 healing health potions as opposed to the major health potions, if that lightning bolt crits and you feel uncomfortable for whatever reason, just use them both. It really doesn't matter. Just use health potion, use whipper-root. I'll show you why it doesn't matter here momentarily. So we've effectively used our 2 healing potentials to completely negate the damage of the lightning bolt, and we are continuing to close in on our elemental shaman friend over here. So around about this point in time, or maybe a little sooner, how do I put this? Blah, 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 blah. There is a tactical argument that the moment, round about here, when you make contact with the lightning bolt, let's say you see the elemental shaman throw down a Nova Totem. You could technically just run away and just waste his mana, right? Like, you can actually do that. That is a viable option, is just to turn around and run away. So I bring this up because a lot of times what will happen is the shaman will turn and run a little bit and try to see what you're doing, and or he'll just stand his ground and charge up in the lightning bolt or something. But in a lot of cases, they want you to come a little bit closer before they feel comfortable in putting their Nova Totem down, because Nova Totem is actually a lot of mana. Anyways, you'll be around about here, and then down will come the Fire Nova Totem. Now, this is when you either need to know ahead of time or you need to do kind of a check. I always assume that this Fire Nova Totem has a 2-second delay on it. I never assume that it is the 4-second one, but based upon the shaman's reactions, you can kind of tell which one it is. So if they put down a Fire Nova Totem and then they immediately go into like trying to throw a thorium grenade at you, or they try to close in on you for a war stomp, 2-second Fire Nova Totem confirmed. If they're kind of doing some weird shit like running around twiddling their thumbs, like 4-second Fire Nova Totem confirmed. Either way, kind of what you want to be doing as a paladin is you want to be targeting the Fire Nova Totem. This is specifically if you're a one-handed variant of the Paladin. If you're the two-handed variant of the Paladin and you're just full DPS going YOLO, yeah, I wouldn't do this, but anyways. So you come at them with like Seal of Righteousness or Seal of Command or whatever the hell you want. And round about the time, try to target the Fire Nova Totem, try to judge into the Fire Nova Totem. That'll take out the Elemental Shaman's Grounding Totem. That's kind of important. Simultaneously with judging, because judging is not on a global cooldown, you are also charging up your Seal of Justice. Okay, so you're judging damage into the totem or the shaman, and you're doing Seal of Justice as soon as you possibly can with the shaman. and then you're trying to close on that Fire Nova Totem in order to kill the Fire Nova Totem. Sometimes you'll be successful in killing the Fire Nova Totem. Sometimes you won't be successful in killing the Fire Nova Totem. Success in killing the Fire Nova Totem typically revolves around whether or not the Shaman is going for a War Stomp, a War Stomp stun, a Goblin Mortar stun, or a Tidal Charm stun, or if they're going for a Grenade stun. If they're going for a Grenade stun, the odds of you being able to kill the Fire Nova Totem are extraordinarily high. If they're going for a... Let me think. If they're going for the Goblin Mortar stun, or they're going for any of the more instant style stuns, then the odds of you killing the Fire Nova Totem are very low. This is typically why you do not see the burst combo coming out with a Thorium Grenade, especially if it's the Elemental Mastery burst. You see the burst combo coming out with a War Stomp, and you're thinking. But that's kind of to our benefit as a Paladin, because it means that we're taking 400 less fire damage, basically. It's also very annoying for the Shaman to try to have to risk the Paladin resisting the Thorium Grenade with a fire resist, and then basically wasting their burst potential. War Stomp is more common. Don't ask me why. Maybe Shamans can tell you better. But if they're doing a War Stomp, or any of the more... If they're not doing a Thorium Grenade, the odds of you killing the Fire Nova Totem are very poor. But let's say the Fire Nova Totem comes down. Okay. So, let's look at the situation. If the Fire Nova Totem crits you... And... wait a minute. So, we're doing this as if there's no Thorium Grenade going on here. And let's say, for the sake of argument, that they used a Goblin Mortar. Do I want to argue Goblin Mortar? If you notice, I've got 3 trinkets for the Shaman here. The whole reason for that is a lot of experienced Shamans will use against a Paladin the PvP trinket, but a lot of arrogant Shamans that have never fought top tier Paladins before will forego the PvP insignia, and they will instead go for a Goblin Mortar, which is why I have Goblin Mortar here. But the Hero Charm is very common because I need the extra damage on the burst. Alright, so roundabout here as a Holy Paladin, you're full life-ish, and you're chilling, and you're about to be hit by, what is that? That's like six resistance checks, or some ungodly amount. Let's just add up the raw totals and see. Let's see the damage average and then the damage potential. Okay, so the damage average is we're assuming that. Let's see. Come on, go back. There we go. In this particular scenario, we are assuming that he is using the Goblin Mortar to protect his Fire Nova Totem, or he's War Stomped you and you're just taking less damage. One of the two. Okay, so. You get stunned, you take like an extra 400 damage, maybe 500 damage from the Goblin Mortar. You're taking 600 damage from the Fire Nova, and then these things crit. What are the odds that you're alive? What are the odds that you're dead? Okay, so Goblin Mortar and Fire Nova Totem are the only ones that can possibly crit. If you had over 5,000 hit points, which again is what we're saying you should have, then the Shaman is doing exactly 5,000 hit points worth of damage to you if you get no resists whatsoever. That is about 4,000-ish in the burst. Yeah, about 4,000-ish in the burst, and about another 1,000 from the Mortar and the Nova going off. Which means, statistically, that if either the Goblin Mortar crits, or if either the Fire Nova Totem crits, you're dead. And you can kind of statistically calculate whether or not that'll happen. I'm not really sure off the top of my head. A lot of these bonus critical things that the Shaman has going on are just for the lightning spells. They're not for the fire spells, which is of important note. So Tidal Mastery here is lightning spells and healing spells, 5%. Where's the other one? Call of Thunder. Yeah. Increase the critical strike chance of your Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning spells by an additional 6%. So as you can see here, there's almost nothing in the talent tree that the Shamans get that really increases the critical strike chance of their fire capabilities. It's mostly just their lightning capabilities, and that's kind of a big deal because you're looking at like 11% crit in the talent trees that is not fire-based crit, and since their chain lightning is critting anyway, we don't really calculate that. So let's say that each of these have a 20% chance to crit, right? You're looking at maybe a 40, about a 40-ish percent, or 33 to a 40-ish percent chance that this shaman, that you'll basically just die, right? That this burst coming in on you is actually capable of killing you, and you'd have to use bubble or some crap like that. But then we go over here and we look at the gear I'm suggesting you use with this build. And then I'm having you note that it's got 120 fire resist, and it's got 101 nature resist, and we're going in on 7 resistance checks. 2 fire resist checks, and then 5 motherfucking nature resist checks. What do you think the odds are that we're not going to resist something? Yeah, the answer is almost never. So it'll be about like 1 in 8 or 1 in 12 duels with that build. I'd say more like 1 in 12. Where it's more like, I want to say 1 in 8. I'll just be generous. I'll say 1 in 8. About 1 in 8 duels that I go in on a shaman with this build, the damage is going to come so heavy my way. The RNGesus is going to come for me, basically. And the way RNG works looks like that in my case is I might be resisting, but everything out of the shaman is critting. Like the mortar is critting, the fire nova totem is critting, the lightning bolt is critting. It's like, yeah, I'm getting resists, but at the same time, everything out of the shaman is critting. Technically, that's still probably not going to kill me because the resists are coming through pretty clutch. But it might be worrisome enough to cause me to want to throw out both my healing potions and or a bubble, right? There's that scenario where I'm saving my bubble for RNGesus coming my way, which doesn't happen very often, but I'm being very mindful of when I'm noticing it happen. And typically you'll notice it happen around about the Fire Nova time, because the Fire Nova totem comes down, then you get stunned. And the shaman cannot charge up the chain lightning until 1.5 seconds after the Nova Totem goes down. So the sequence of events is down comes a Nova Totem, then you get stunned, then the Elemental Shaman starts casting a chain lightning, then the Nova Totem goes off, right? The Nova Totem goes off, then the damage registers on you. It registers like let me think. It's like a full second the Nova Totem damage is registering on you before the Chain Lightning comes in. Before the Chain Lightning Earth Shock automatic crit combo comes in. What this basically means is I know I have a very good idea how much damage this shit's going to do. This thing I can watch, and this thing, the Lightning Bolt I can watch and counter with Health Pot Whipper Root. The Fire Nova Totem I can watch to see what it does, including the mortar or the grenade, and I can see if that thing also crits. And if I'm watching like Lightning Bolt crit, Mortar crit, Nova crit, and then this shit is coming in like a second down the line, I'm bubbling. Like, I'm not even questioning it. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm not even risking it. I know I'll have a higher win rate if I just fucking bubble. So I'll just reach for my bubble, and I'll bubble, and all this damage will just get eaten by my bubble, and I'll heal to full, and I'll be like, okay, whatever. That was very entertaining. The point is, I can watch this for RNG too, and also execute RNG management with the use of bubble. You can use different trinkets than the ones I'm using, and you could also use like a PvP trinket, for example, and you could do something where rather than an Arcanite Dragonling, you could have a PvP trinket here. You're watching all the RNG come in, you're not liking what you see, you trinket off the stun, and you either throw a stun on the shaman yourself, which is kind of stupid, but in this gearing case, you could easily be like, oh shit, PvP trinket that stun for emergencies, Arena Grandmaster, and then you have the Arena Grandmaster suck up the additional burst, you survive, you carry on. More accurately, you just kind of save your bubble for these RNGesus moments. But these, anyways, so as I was showing before, in my gear and my build, there's something like a 35 to a 40% chance. Basically, if one of these are critting, and I get to see that, so I can bubble if it happens, right? That I just straight up die here. Okay, are we clear on this? That I just straight up die here. One sec, let me collect my thoughts. So the sequence is basically, yeah, I've got all this resists, but sometimes my resists crap out, right? So I can observe this to see if resists are crapping out and or if RNG is smiling on the shaman. I can observe this to see if the same thing is happening. Are my resist crapping out? Is RNG smiling on the shaman? And then I get a chance to look at how think of it like poker. I get to see this card. I get to see this card. I get to see this card. I get to see how things are progressing. And if I still don't like what I see by the time the Nova Totem goes off, I still have bubble on the back of this. Now, a lot of times I might just roll the dice and not even bubble, knowing that yeah, this might have crit and not got resisted. This might have crit and not got resisted. This might have crit, but it also got resisted, right? So I took 600 damage, but it was like a fat 600, so it definitely crit me. And I might be looking at the situation going, do I bubble? Do I not bubble? Do I rely on my resistances to carry the day through this 4,000 damage burst combo that's about to hit me? Like, what do I do? And if I don't like what I'm seeing, I just bubble. But 9 times out of 10, I'm going to like what the fuck I'm seeing, so I'm just going to press forward. So what happens far more often in the case, and so we're done talking about the bad things that could happen and how to manage the RNG of this particular state of affairs. 9 times out of 10, what'll happen though is my resists come through clutch and I end up being at like 20% life or more, despite the fact that I just took the full burst of the elemental shaman on the chin. And a lot of times I don't even have to use a healing potion. I might have to use a whipper root. I might not even have to use a whipper root. I typically just use the whipper root just to make sure, but sometimes that lightning bolt comes in, it does like 600 damage, or it does like 400 damage, and I'm just kind of like, I don't even care to whipper root that. Let's keep going. Yeah. So this scenario playing out in this particular gear is not the RNG norm, is basically what I'm saying. We're assuming a below an above average RNG win for the shaman in this particular situation, and you can see that you're just perfectly freaking fine. So let us say, for the sake of argument, that you managed to get on top, you managed to survive the burst. You're physically on top of the elemental shaman, like you freshly come out of being stunned. You've survived the burst. Let's say you've survived the burst with like 5% life for some reason, right? You've already got Seal of Justice up. Your opponents, the Shamans, Grounding Totem should have been taken care of with your Judgment. It may or may not still be up, but that's kind of you screwing things up more than the shaman actually doing something right. If how do I put this? If the grounding totem is still up on the shaman, it is because the shaman fucked up. And by that I mean that he stunned you too early and he let you get the option to use a health potion. He basically stunned you back here. And that's not enough time to get off the burst before you come out of the stun. So you'll have like a moment to do something before you come out of the stun, which should always be use a health potion. If you think you can't survive the... if the burst is a little threatening at that point. Anyways, let's say you survive the burst. You've got 5% life left. What do? Well, you already have Seal of Justice up. So you melee attack into the shaman. If you have Reckoning, this becomes a 110,000% success plan. If you have if you don't have Reckoning, but you have Holy Shock, you just Holy Shock heal yourself back up to like, you just use the free crit, you Holy Shock heal yourself back up to like, what is that, like 25% life, and then you can execute the plan I'm about to describe. But if you have Reckoning, you just click attack on the enemy shaman and you immediately go into a critical, a free critical divine favored, there we go, a divine favored holy light heal. And just like in my video, Seal of Justice might be OP, you're going to have almost with Reckoning, you're going to have about 100% chance to stun this elemental shaman for 2 seconds. The Elemental Shaman, this is assuming you got, he even has a fucking PvP trinket. The Elemental Shaman theoretically could PvP the trinket, but then you just throw Hammer of Justice on him since there's no grounding totem anymore. And because they don't share cooldown reduction, now he's stunned for 6 seconds. So what either happens is he sits the 2-second stun, and you get off a full Holy Light, a critical Holy Light, putting you back up to something like 65% health or 70% health. He trinkets that 2-second stun and he eats a Hodge for his troubles, and you just heal back to full anyways. The only other theoretical option is, like, let's say he had a Goblin Mortar and he still has War Stomp, and he notices you at like 5% life, and he's like, oh, I'm just going to War Stomp stun him for like 1.5 seconds. And then you have to ask the question, what is he going to do to kill you? And the answer is he can't get off a lightning bolt in that amount of time. Like, he can charge one up pretty damn thoroughly. Like, what else does he really have? Did he throw a thorium grenade at you, and then he's got a Goblin Mortar on top of that? Like, what is he doing to try to get past this 5% remaining hit points? To say nothing of the fact that with this build here, you've got something more like 35% hit points, not 5% hit points. So this option for them to even win at this point isn't even there. But I'm trying to explain to you like a really bad worst case scenario where you're barely alive with 50 or 60 hit points. The question you have to ask yourself is, what the fuck is this shaman actually going to do? And the answer is they don't have a lot of options to kill you before you can either get that holy shock heal off, or you can get that wreck charge into the shaman and stun them. And once they're stunned, they're kind of fucked because their instant cast is on a 5-second cooldown. So they can't really hit you with that. They don't really have any other instant cast abilities they can hit you with. Maybe they can stun you for 1.5 seconds and then try to throw a thorium grenade on you. But at that point, we're assuming that they had like a Goblin Mortar, a thorium grenade, and they're a Tauren Shaman at the same time. And they managed to get you down to 5% life, right? Like the RNG of that happening with the gear that I'm suggesting is mind-boggling. That's like a 1 in 100 death right there. And even then you can see it coming because you still fucking have bubble. Moral of the story is there's nothing they can do. Okay? Just trust me on this. Like, put on some semblance of this gear, run at them at full life, execute accordingly. There's almost no way that they can kill you inside this first burst. Okay, so the vast majority of the cases you'll have a high percentage of life. You're just gonna auto attack into the shaman. They may or may not PvP trink out of it. They might not even have a PvP trinket, so I'll just put a slash through it. One of those is they had a PvP trinket. One of those is they didn't have a PvP trinket. I'm going to take away their Zandalar Hero Charm because they've already used that. That's how they were getting these 800-ish lightning bolts. And the next thing you know, you just do a Seal of Justice. You stun them for 2 seconds. Maybe they forced you to use a Hammer of Justice after that. You may or may not have a bubble. Really doesn't matter. You just stun them. You heal back up to full. Okay. What is the situation of the shaman now? The situation of the shaman is we've already shown that the shaman can't really kill you with a full burst, which is like guaranteed to crit with like really good RNG. What the hell do you think's going to happen to them when they have to now go toe-to-toe with you with no pushback immunity, with you having the ability to kind of stun them and heal yourself at will, with like, what is this? With like over 5,000 hit points and almost 5,000 mana. What do you think the outcome of this is? Well, I'll kind of tell you what the outcome is. The outcome is they probably have one more stun up their sleeve, like they've still got their grenade or they still got their war stomp, and they're going to wait for their chain lightning to cool down a little bit, and then they're going to try to burst on you a second time. And the odds of that burst actually killing you from near full life with all these resistances and all these stats is virtually non-existent. You may or may not still have bubble to counter with. You may or may not still have a health potion based upon RNG to also counter with. One second, I'm going to take a drink of water. And generally speaking, the Shaman is going to enter desperation territory very quickly. They're going to start having mana issues very quickly. So they'll like burst on you a second time, and it's your job as a paladin to make sure that second burst performs even as worst as the first. And you will be able to do that fairly easily as long as you keep your life high. They're going to start going low mana pretty quickly. They're going to start reaching for those mana potions. They're going to start reaching for those whipper roots. Dragon fruit to try to keep their mana up, but it's just not going to matter because at any time you want to, you can just throw a thorium grenade and stun them for 3 seconds and heal. You can throw your hammer of justice and stun them and heal. You can seal of justice, stun them for 2 seconds and just heal, which is on its own separate internal cooldown. They can't stop you from healing, and they can't get you the fuck off of them. This becomes 110,000% the case if you're beating on them almost this entire time with a Mugga hurt. So once you survive the first initial burst, switch out of something like an Ebon Hand, you want to slow. I have this because it's got more stamina and it's got fire resist, but you want kind of a weapon that has a slow swing speed, and it's got some damn stamina on it. Those are the most important stats because Seal of Justice works off of the swing speed of the weapon. My best guess is every 5 seconds of swing speed you put into the target has a 100% chance to stun them with Seal of Justice. So this has like a 50-50 chance every time I hit the target with it to stun it for 2 seconds. You just want the high hit points basically, and you want the slow speed so you can get that little reckoning charge, get the stun off, heal to full, and then you switch into a Mugga hurt, and you don't let them go anywhere, and you just beat them to death. Like that is the plan. They'll try to get away from you eventually in like a ghost wolf form, but you can just chain your stuns, and if they eventually get away from you, just thorium grenade and catch back up to them. I already talked about this. And you just keep beating on them with Mugga hurt until you get the slows. God help the Shaman if you have frost oil on your damn weapon. They're not going anywhere. They can't get away from you. It's 2 mana intensive for them to even try to get away from you. Eventually, they're going to have to stop and heal themselves while you're beating on them. They have no pushback immunity, as we already talked about. Your Seal of Righteousness is times 2 pushbacking against them. Life is miserable as fuck for the Shaman. They are going to slowly die horribly over time. You can either judge Crusader on them for additional damage, or you can judge Wisdom on them for additional mana. 9 times out of 10 with this build, though, I would highly suggest that you just judge Judgment of Light into them, because the number one way a Shaman will try to get away from you is they'll start Earth-shocking you, which you just kind of cleanse off and you kind of ignore. But you're cleansing like a maniac once you're physically on top of a Shaman, just so you're not slowed. And, of course, if they're slowed and you're slowed, you don't have to cleanse. But let me check to make sure I'm still recording. I'll be upset if I'm not. Okay. I'm basically saying there's a lot of little things you have to do to stay physically on top of the Shaman to beat the crap out of them. But it's all pretty straightforward, and I'm sure you can figure it out pretty easily. The one thing to keep in mind is they can, at any point in time, they can turn around and they can still burst on you, especially if they still have a stun up their sleeve. Okay? And so, for that reason, the number one way that they will try to get away from you is they'll be Earth-shocking you, or usually not Earth-shocking. They'll be Frost-shocking you, and they're hoping for the Frost shocks to crit, or to do enough damage to you that it forces you to stop and root yourself in place and heal so they can get distance away from you. That scenario only works if they're not slowed by a Mugga hurt, and it only works if you're unable to get like a justice twist. It's not a twist. I keep saying twist, but it's not a twist. You can get a justice stun on them and then heal them. So the odds of them being able to pull off that trick are very low. But the point I'm trying to make is it's very important for you as the Paladin not to let your health drop below like 70%. If your health is at 70%, you need to be looking for a stun heal, or you need to be looking for a slow heal pretty pronto, because More so if they still have a stun. You don't even want to let it go even that low if at all possible. But if they don't have a stun up their sleeve, it's like, yeah, I don't really want it to go below 70% because RNG might come a knocking. Even though statistically, I could probably let it go down to 50% and still survive their non-stun burst pretty consistently. I just don't like playing around with RNG when the fight is already in the bag for me, basically. Moral of the story is, eventually they're just going to run out of mana. I'm a big fan of, that's what I wanted to say. I'm a big fan of putting Judgment of Light into them, especially with the gear I have here because I have a decent amount of spell power. Primarily because the little bit of hit points you pull back from things like life-stealing enchant and Judgment of Light, which has a 2/3 chance to proc every time you hit the target, it causes you as the paladin to not have to stop and heal when normally you would have to stop to heal, which means you can put more pressure on the shaman, which means it's the shaman that has to stop and heal before you have to stop and heal, and then the nightmare just keeps manifesting itself. It's really bad. Like, if you ever get on top of a shaman and you're near full life and they don't have any more burst, you'll see what I mean. That they're basically fucked. You're just gonna grind them into pulp, and you're gonna do it pretty spectacularly easily. All right, so let's do some Control Z's. I want to get those lightning bolts away. How long ago was this? Okay, there we go. And let's talk about if you're a Ret Reckoning style paladin. So you cannot just stop and heal yourself very easily under these conditions. You don't have the high nature resists or anything like that. I'm assuming that when Drakova is charging at the enemy shaman, which he's going to do so